Critics initially dismissed the effort as unnecessary and extravagant, but a decade later, the results were undeniable. These fences didn't just protect livestock and crops. They sparked one of the most remarkable ecological recoveries in modern history. How did Australia achieve such a quiet global conservation miracle? Let's dive into this fascinating story. To understand why Australia built some of the longest wire fences in the world, we need to travel back to 1859. That year, a wealthy settler named Thomas Austin released 24 wild European rabbits onto his Victorian estate simply for sport hunting. What started as a small introduction quickly exploded within decades. The rabbits multiplied into hundreds of millions, spreading across southern Australia like wildfire. The continent's open grasslands, lack of natural predators, and favorable climate made it a rabbit paradise. By the 1890s, farmers reported entire hillsides seemingly moving, not because of the wind, but due to the sheer number of rabbits. The consequences were devastating. These invasive rabbits decimated the landscape, causing widespread soil erosion and destroying crops on an unprecedented scale. At its worst, the economic damage reached millions of Australian dollars every year, equivalent to hundreds of millions in today's US currency. Despite desperate government efforts to control the outbreak, nothing seemed to work. Frustration ran high until a breakthrough idea emerged. If extermination was impossible, why not build a barrier to keep them out? Thus began the construction of the State Barrier Fence in Western Australia in 1901. Stretching over 1,800 kilometers, it was one of the longest unbroken fences in the world at the time. Its purpose was straightforward: block rabbits from invading the southwest. But building it was anything but simple. Workers faced brutal heat, dust storms, water shortages, and rugged terrain. Supplies arrived by camel or horse-drawn wagons, and maintaining the fence was an ongoing battle against shifting sands and floods. The cost was enormous, over £80,000 back then, but the payoff was worth it. The fence slowed the rabbit invasion, saving tens of millions in agricultural losses and giving farmers a rare sense of control. By the 1920s, more fences were built not just against rabbits, but also to keep out dingoes, Australia's wild dogs that preyed on sheep. These fences became more than just farming tools. They turned into vital lifelines for rural communities and powerful conservation instruments. While a fence might seem simple, Australia's vast size, over 7.6 million square kilometres, made building and maintaining these barriers a monumental task. Each fence came with its own unique challenges and purposes. The State Barrier Fence, initially designed for rabbits, evolved to keep out emus, wild dogs, and kangaroos. Meanwhile, the famous Dingo Fence, still maintained today at around 5,300 kilometers, stands as one of the world's most ambitious pest control projects, stretching across a distance that would cover London to Istanbul and back. If you unraveled and laid out all of Australia's major exclusion fences end to end, they would span over 1/8 the circumference of the Earth. Together, these fences create one of the longest pest exclusion networks on the planet. More recently, in the 2010s, farmers in Queensland pioneered cluster fencing, grouping properties and encircling them with predator-proof barriers to protect sheep from wild dogs, kangaroos, and feral pigs. But these fences aren't just built, and forgotten maintenance is a constant, demanding task. In remote, harsh environments, even a single break can unravel years of hard work. In some parts of South Australia, these fences mark more than just physical boundaries. They symbolize the line between two very different worlds. On one side, thriving sheep farms protected from predators. On the other, the wild landscape where native and invasive species roam free. What started as a desperate attempt to control a rabbit problem evolved into a profound ongoing effort to balance agriculture, ecology, and survival across a continent. Australia's fences may seem simple, but they tell a story of resilience, innovation, and one of the most extraordinary. A line made of wire and mesh slicing through the vast Australian wilderness. A boundary that carries weight far beyond its physical presence. This isn't just any fence. It's a dividing line that decides where livestock can thrive, where native species find refuge, and where Australia's ongoing battle against invasive pests will be waged next. Among these monumental structures stands the iconic Dingo Fence. one of the longest man-made constructions on Earth, stretching thousands of kilometers from Timber in Queensland, cutting through New South Wales and ending at the cliffs of the Great Australian Bight in South Australia. It cuts through some of the continent's harshest terrains. Originally built in the 1880s to stop rabbits, the fence was rebuilt and extended in the early 1900s with a new mission to keep dingoes out and protect livestock from relentless attacks. It became in essence the front line of a vast ecological battleground, drawing a clear line across the continent. North and west of this fence, dingoes roam freely. And these regions boast healthier, more balanced ecosystems. But south and east of the fence, the story is starkly different. Dingoes are largely absent, allowing invasive predators like foxes and cats to multiply unchecked, devastating native wildlife populations. Small mammals have sharply declined. Yet for many farmers, this dingo-free zone is a lifeline. The difference between keeping their farms and losing everything. By the 1950s, the fence earned the nickname the Dingo Line, and satellite images today reveal the striking contrast. One side shows wild predator-driven ecosystems, the other orderly farmland shaped by human hands. Maintaining this colossal barrier is no small feat. Dedicated crews known as fence runners patrol tirelessly, repairing storm damage, fixing breaks caused by animals or erosion, and ensuring the fence remains an unbroken shield. Yet controversy surrounds the dingo fence. Conservationists argue it disrupts natural processes and harms biodiversity inside its borders, creating an unnatural ecological balance. Others counter that the fence preserves ecosystems that no longer function without human intervention. Indigenous communities add another layer to this debate, reminding us that for thousands of years, dingoes and humans coexisted in harmony through traditional land management practices. Thus, the fence stands as a symbol of both protection and conflict. Australia's fences may seem simple barriers, but they've reshaped landscapes, altered wildlife patterns, and changed how land is used. The dingo fence, while successfully protecting livestock, brought unexpected consequences. Outside the fence, higher livestock losses come hand in hand with richer biodiversity. Dingoes, it turns out, suppress populations of invasive predators like foxes and cats, restoring balance to fragile ecosystems. The Western Australian State Barrier Fence tells a similar story. Originally built to block rabbits, it evolved into a defense against emus, kangaroos, and feral pigs, reducing crop damage and disease spread. But it also disrupted migration routes and caused overpopulation within its confines. More recently, Queensland's cluster fencing sought to avoid these pitfalls by grouping properties into predator-proof zones, but critics remain wary. What are the long-term effects when predator control shifts ecosystems in unforeseen ways? Time will tell. The fences were never built with conservation in mind. They were financial gambles to save Australia's wool and crop industries from collapse. The original rabbit-proof fence alone cost over £250 per kilometre, and thousands of workers toiled under brutal conditions hundreds of kilometres from civilization. Supply lines had to be established, depots built, and inspectors stationed to maintain this mammoth effort. Picture this, a seemingly endless wire and mesh fence cutting through the rugged Australian outback. More than just a physical barrier, it's a front line in an epic battle between nature and survival. These fences don't merely mark territory. They decide where livestock can flourish, where native wildlife can find sanctuary, and where Australia's relentless war against invasive species is fought every day.